Hello, my name is Marissa Leone, and I'm a member of the Healthcare Applications team here at Dimensional Insight. Today I'm going to be walking you through the stamp component grammar for our four most frequently used components. So the stamp template component block contains specifications for each portlet that will be part of the stamps. There are 7 types of components that can be added to stamps, and these are text, indicators, images, charts, the matrix portlet, the measures portlet, as well as quick views. But in this video, we're going to be covering the 4 most commonly used components, which are the text, indicator, image, and chart. So let's start with the text component. The text component can be used for adding labels and other text to your stamp. So the block and possible attributes are going to include the text string. That's when you're going to type whatever you want to be present on the stamp, as well as specifying a position. You can then optionally suggest a style, including fonts, sizes, whether you want it bolded or italicized, and setting the size and adding any click actions to it. The other way that you can use the text component is if you wanted to reference the selected measure. So if you select a measure on the stamp and you want the label to reflect that measure, then you can use the measure one macro in the text field as we have here. If the stamp has multiple measures, then the number identifies the measure to which the neighboring attributes will apply. You can also do the same thing with dimension, where you could enter dimension_1. So let's take a look at that within Workbench. So we have 2 text components. Here I'm just putting yesterday because I want to note that the portlet I'm referencing is the value for yesterday. So I just typed in yesterday. Then for the measure label, I wanted to reference whatever measure is going to be selected on the stamp. Since I can't know that when I'm creating the stamp file, I create this macro for measure 1. That way whatever the measure is selected will show up on the stamp. So if we go to DivePort, we can see that we have our yesterday. And here we've added styles to make it gray and bold. And then here we have referencing total emissions, which is the measure that the stamp is referencing. Next, we're going to be discussing the indicator component. So the indicators provide a visual or text-based representation of data values. The text-based indicator will show the number value for the measure, while visual indicators will display an icon to show the measure value. Visual indicators include alert, slider, gauge, circular gauge, left gauge, right gauge, fill gauge, and many more. So for the block and possible attributes, first you're going to set your indicator type, and this can be a text, alert, gauge, or any number of other options. And then you can set its position within the stamp, its size, and then the optional click actions and threshold. So here's our stamp file in Workbench. Remember, all stamps are coded within Workbench and then show up on DivePort. And we can see here that we have our indicator. Type is alert, and we've set it to a triangle. And we then sort of specify the value. We wanted to look at that first measure with the range. So year to date, we're going to look at the complete versus the previous variance. We can set our style, our fonts, our sizes, colors. And then here we have another indicator type for text. So this will show us the variance % number. So we can see here we have our indicator, our alert indicator, which is this triangle. And then based on the numbers, it will apply the colors that you set. And then here we have our text-based indicator. And I will also point out that every number is a text-based indicator, and you can add quick actions off all of these to launch the default analysis. Next up is the image component. The image component allows the user to add an image to the stamp. The block and possible attributes for the image include putting where the stamp should find the image and then the position of it. So where in the stamp do you want it to sit? The image URL specifies the location or path of the image file. And the URL can be explicit, as in looking for a specific image, or can include a macro. So here we have our current and yesterday stamp. We generally define images towards the bottom. So I'm going to go down here and I'm going to see I have an image URL and I'm looking within my images folder for an image called info circle. I'm setting it to be 10 and then 375, and there's going to be a click action on it to launch the measure overview. So here we have, this is our current yesterday stamp. If I click on this I can see I launch the measure overview. So finally, we have our chart component. The chart component allows you to display a chart within the stamp. The chart component is definitely our stamp component with the most variation and the most options. So right now you can create a line chart, a column, bar, donut, pie, a combination, spark line, spark column, and many more. For the block and possible attributes, you're going to want to specify your chart type, the position, size, and then each chart type has a variety of different selections and attributes and properties that you can apply. Some examples of the types of properties you'll be able to apply are line styles and point styles for line graphs, the format of the values on the axis, whether you want to show the legend and how large the legend should be, the number of items shown on the chart. You can select whether you want to hide nulls. You have the ability to sort and filter. You can set a min-max on the scale, and much more. Not every attribute will work for every chart type, but the chart component documentation will walk you through what's available for each chart type. So here we have a stamp that we call chart with info. So here I have a line chart, and I've specified my chart type equals line. I don't want my legend to be visible, so I put false, and I don't want to always include 0. That means I don't want to tie my chart to 0. I select the dimension I want it to go off of, so in this case a date and a rolling 12 months by month. We select its format, its position within the stamp, it's the size of the chart, as well as the colors of the lines. You'll also notice that I've set the point style to circle, so that when we see the stamp, we expect to see circles on the line at each data point. And we've also been able to set a click action. So if we go to DocPort, we can see we have our chart with info stamp, and our lines have points on them because we added this point style. So in conclusion, the 4 most commonly used component types for stamps are text, indicator, image, and chart. Each component and attribute has its own options and requirements, so we encourage consulting the help documentation for more information.